Welcome, my rising, redeemed, relentless warriors. I'm Icarus, and this is the After the Fall show, the place where lives are shared, falls are felt, and rebirth is forged in fire. And today, we're going to be talking about something that we all go through: trauma, loss, and grief. And I'm joined today by Sarah. Do you want to introduce yourself, Sarah?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sarah, a holistic grief and trauma coach. And yeah, I'm the heart behind Embrace.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you for coming along and welcome to the show. We're going to jump straight into it because that's how we do it here. And we always like to start at the very beginning so that we can get people as comfortable with the journey, because the journey of understanding how every single person gets to where they are today, whether it be learning to support people, how having gone through it themselves to get to a point where they feel growth and feel better. We start at the core. So let's go right back. Let's go back to the beginning, before the point that in your life you knew that something may not be right or that something had changed. So who were you? What's the journey you took until that point?
I would say everything changed for me when my brother passed away in 2018. Well, actually, we'll go back a little bit further than that, because in 2012, he was actually diagnosed with MS. So that is part of grief in itself, I guess, and identity loss. The brother that I knew that worked out religiously, watching him suffer with an autoimmune disease like MS was hard. Listen, hard for him, obviously, but the family and friends that supported him. So yeah, that was a type of grief, but we managed that and we all pulled together as a family. And then he was diagnosed with cancer in April 2018.
Just picking up on something you said there, because I think a lot of people don't really realize that if something happens to us, we tend to feel it, don't we? Because it's personal. But when something happens to someone so close to us, you can kind of inherit the trauma, can't you? Because it's a shock. Your world ends just as much as theirs may. That earthquake is seismic across a whole family, isn't it? And I think that's overlooked.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And like I say, it is a type of grief in itself, watching someone's world, flip upside down. But you come together and yeah, and then to be hit with the devastating news that he had bowel cancer was just, yeah, I don't even feel there's any words. But my brother passed away 4 months later after his diagnosis. Unfortunately, he couldn't have chemo. He was too far gone, too aggressive. And yeah, my whole world changed after that. I would say I probably just bumbled along in life for a good 5 years, not knowing who I was, just working and being a mother and a partner, and because that's kind of the pressure of society, really, isn't it? So I really turned my pain into purpose and honoured my brother in every way that I possibly could, and became a holistic grief and trauma coach.
Firstly, I'm sorry for your loss. Secondly, it's fantastic you can take something even with a sort of 5-year duration. And we should talk about that a little bit, because that's important. I think that people understand through the journey you're sharing, that it doesn't happen instantly. There is a pause. There is an uncertainty moment, isn't there, when life begins to question, like, what am I now? What is life now? What happened? So can we zoom into that for a second and then go on to your trauma piece, if that's okay? So if we were to sort of focus in and say, for you in that sort of 5-year period, what was happening behind the scenes? I mean, you've talked about, being a parent, the sort of general life, work and these things. Did you sort of bury yourself into that more through it, do you think? Or was that just kind of almost business as usual? And did you just feel kind of a bit lost doing it? How was it for you? And what was behind the scenes and under the skin of that?
I think I was the strong one. I think everyone looked at me as the strong one. I had my niece and nephew and my family around me, especially my mum. It was only me and my brother. And I took a long period of time off work. I knew that that's what I had to do just to navigate the next part of my life. When I went back to work, I wasn't the same person, and I was made redundant. I thought, what else could life throw at me?
Yeah.
But you keep on going. And yeah, I worked in the corporate world for the next 7 years of that. And yeah, but just every day was just like Groundhog Day, really.
Yeah.
And I
cut
wouldn't
and
take
repeat.
it. Yeah, you get up, you go to work, you get the kids to school, you're exhausted by going to work, being a mum, being a partner, and just day to day life. By the time I knew it, it was kind of 5 years down the line, not going to the gym, not really eating properly, definitely not socializing. That had gone. I could just the bare minimum for me.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, there's obviously grief, loss, and the trauma of those things, but the mirror to that for that period sounds again, it's like depression, isn't it? Because I know from my own journey, when depression hits and when overload and burnout hits, I was the same. So I totally get where you go. Where every day you get up again, you put your clothes on, you brush your teeth, you eat your dinner, you smile at everybody, and you go out the door and you just feel hollow, and you
Yeah.
understand, and you try and figure your purpose out again. With that, then, so when was the fundamental moment before you sort of jumped into, I'm going to go and do this? What was the thing that made you go, this has to change now? I'm going to invest myself in something, or even just the hook when something snagged and you just said, this can't carry on. What was that moment like?
It was work for me, work, stress, and a lot of things going on at work. And I thought, this isn't right. My brother was always self-employed. He had his own business and he could never answer to anyone. But yeah, I just got to a point where I thought, is this stress and the burnout that I've got from my job worth it? Because I knew that I had so much more to give. And, when my brother died, he left such a huge legacy behind that I never realized the extent to how much he helped people. It was amazing.
Mm.
And so work, stress, what I was going through at the time, and I just realized I've got to get out. I've got to honor my brother in any way that I can. And what better way to do that than support people on their grief journeys? And that was when I made the decision to do my qualification and leave that corporate world behind.
I'd say one thing, and again, I don't know you personally. We've only kind of met through doing this briefly, but I will say that it sounds like the relationship with your brother was strong, and that your brother, was helping lives, and the fact that your path of almost your path of recovery was to do something different but similar. He'd be proud of you. Something you said, which I pick up on, and rightly or wrongly, I'd like to ask you this, which is you mentioned he was self-employed. Did that give you some courage when you made that choice to say, do you know what, he did it? I could do it
Yeah.
too. Was that there?
Yeah, he's my strength for everything, and I know I'm so lucky to have such a strong, character in my life that I almost would know what he would say to me, like,
Yeah.
"Get up, you know who you are. Like,
Yeah.
come on, keep going. You don't need to answer to anybody. You can do this. What makes you think you can't?" And you do just get sucked into that whole corporate life, bar and the money and us. No, there's so much more to life than those things. My happiness is more important, my kids. And, I want my children to see me how, my brother's children see him and everyone else. And that is, look what my mum did, like
Yeah.
something amazing. What better legacy to leave behind? But I knew that I had to do it for myself. I had to get out and be true to myself. And that is a value that is just so important to me. Be true to yourself.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? Someone once said to me, the more you earn in a hollow place, the less you have because you
Yeah.
feel less value for yourself afterwards. Yeah, that's amazing. And you beat me to the word. I was going to say when you finish, you have the word legacy and you said it, which is exactly what it is because that's what you create, isn't it? There's something amazing about children where I think that if you go through something and you hit a change point and you begin to climb that mountain, one of the
Mm,
things we forget to pay that respect to ourselves, which is that legacy you talk about, is what image am I leaving to the ones that I influenced? For example, in your influence, how your brother influenced you, and I have a brother too, and how he influences me. So there's an amazing circle there, isn't there, of healing that goes beyond just the moment you have to actually the legacy you leave and potentially the lessons you're teaching to those around you of strength. So I think it's really good. If I was
yeah.
to dig a tad more, just to one piece, which would when you made that choice, so you had that kind of belief in yourself because you can almost hear that internal monologue of that whisper in the ear of, come on, let's get going. What did rebuilding actually look like for you? Because I think people, when they're going through anything like this, whether it be a career path change, a recovery from loss and trauma, everyone sort of does it differently. Some people are very silent, some people are very vocal, and I don't think there's a one size fits all. So can you explain to the world what yours was looking like?
Yeah, I'd say mine was silent. I'm just one to go away and kind of get on with it. I think the close people around me obviously knew what was going on, and for me, I kind of had to strip it back really and start at what parts of my life, because it's not just learning, a new qualification and going self-employed. Everything had to kind of align, because what was the point of eating right if I don't go to the gym and I don't move and I don't exercise? So, everything, I had to work on everything, whether that was, yeah, going to the gym, getting back in there after 5 years, because that's how long it took me.
Yeah.
And yeah, just working on myself and just that healing journey that you think, because it's been 5 years, I'm healed. No, there's so much more to that. So
Do you
yeah, I'd
think
say I did it silently. Sorry.
do you think you had steps then? Did you have days where you, like, going back to the gym was like, okay, everything's aligned out. It's a small step now. And then did you feel you had some days where you got over hurdles and other days where actually a stone felt too much? Did you have peaks and troughs of change?
Yeah, and that was okay. Do you know what? I would set myself 2 wins in a day. Now, whether that was going to do a food shop or going to the gym for half an hour, they were my 2 wins in a day. If I achieved those 2 things that I set out to do in a day, I was okay with that. I don't set unrealistic goals or anything like that, and I'm not hard on myself. And I started to prioritize as well. What can wait till tomorrow? Do I have to get it all done today? What can I control in my life? What's within my control and what's outside of it? Boundaries. Boundaries is a huge thing as well. I knew that I had to set boundaries. And the people that I had around me, I realized that I had a lot of toxic people, people that
Yeah.
I require growth, and those people, and this is going to sound really harsh, were not coming with me on that journey. That
Yeah.
all of those things aligned, we're never going to get them all completely aligned, but I had to work on every aspect of my life.
Yeah. It's amazing. Is that I think someone once said again, you have to offload something to make capacity for something. And
Yeah.
we do tend to find, I think, when we're in a lifestyle, for example, let's say it's money driven, you're in the corporate world doing these bits and pieces, you tend to get hooked by people that are similar. And when life
Yeah.
changes and you revalue stuff, there's almost an excess baggage quota under change that just says, ain't everyone going to survive and no one's going to stop me at the same time. So clear the path, the train's coming through. And it sounds brutal, doesn't it? But it's
Yeah.
the key to change. I need to get better or I need to do something. No one should be able to stop me if it's my choice. So
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
powerful. What do you think, if there's someone in your situation or a similar situation, what do you think through your experience is one of the things that people get wrong when it comes to change or recovery or becoming someone new? If you were sort of like to sort of step out of yourself and then look at a horizon full of people doing the similar thing, what do you think of the things you've learned there that people may get wrong and they could avoid or change?
You have to want to change, don't you? You can sit down and give advice and coach as many people, but they have to want to do it. It has to. We know that if you do the same thing every day, you're going to get the same results. I know that comes from the corporate world as well, but
Yeah.
it's so true. You are going to get the same results. You've got to want to do it. You've got to be passionate about it, and you've just got to go out there and do it. Really, and I know that's easier said than done,
Mm.
because we all have a comfort zone, right?
Yeah. But it comes to a choice, it sounds like that. So you have to want it and then choose it, I guess. That's kind of what I'm picking up. Because do you think people want to and then put themselves off?
Yeah. And there's so many factors. It's not easy going self-employed, is it? You haven't got that security blanket of,
Yeah.
a wage, and it's really daunting and terrifying. And I totally understand that. But you can still make small changes, even if it's somewhere else in your life.
Mm.
Like I say, there's lots of different aspects of your life, like the people that the company that we keep and the friends, and, it can start in little places, like just moving, going out for a walk if you haven't done for so long, being out there with nature. And there's so many little things that people can do, but they have got to want it.
So So if I can ask you two questions then. Obviously you've got two facets here. So you've obviously learned a skill to deal with grief and trauma with people to help them. When you were going through that journey, did that help you also heal in a way that you hadn't done before you did it? Did you learn anything about yourself doing that course or those courses?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because I thought timeline, I'm, 7 years down the line. Of course, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Actually, when I was doing my qualification, it brought up so many things for me that I realised that I hadn't dealt with, and I think a huge part of that is where trauma sits in the body, because it's not just in the mind. Was the reason that I was putting on weight and suffering more with my chronic illnesses because of the amount of inflammation and trauma in my body. So it taught me so much about, yeah, trauma in the body, and the nervous system, and that actually self-care was where I needed to start, because if you
Yeah.
don't look after yourself and understand your body, you're not really going to get anywhere,
Mm.
because it's got to start with you. And I think that's the really difficult part of grief, because then comes the guilt. You start putting yourself first. Or if you go and feel a little bit of joy somewhere, or you smile or you laugh, you're like, no, I shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
But actually it starts with us. So yeah, I learned a lot about the nervous system, and yeah, it has taught me so much. So
Would you? I mean, I think a lot of people, I think, probably don't put the two together because you feel sad. It's logically, it sounds feelingy, doesn't it? You feel sad. You know,
mm,
I want to cry. I don't want to go out because I don't want people to look at me. It's almost sort of mentally driven. Are there any kind of pointers or any kind of observational things if people are going through grief? You'd recommend that, almost that mind to body connection. Is there anything they should be looking for to think? Yeah, can I tell if this is impacting me more than I think?
yeah, take the time to breathe. I know we've said that before, but
Mm.
it's something so little that we take for granted. How many times in a day or a week do you actually sit there and go, I'm just going to place my hand on my heart and
Mm.
just take some really deep breaths?
Yeah.
Shut my eyes and really concentrate on my breath, where I am right now in my body, and just take that time for me, even if it's a couple of minutes out of your day. You just
Yeah.
got to reconnect with yourself and ground. I'm okay. I'm here. I'm present. I'm going to be all right. Breathe. That is my number one. I know, and it's just so simple,
Yeah.
but breathing and grounding techniques. Get outside, get out in the nature. Just have a little walk around a park. Just
It,
simple
sorry.
things we take for granted.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think it was Einstein said one of the times he was like most stressed, he'd always go out for a walk because he said nothing bad ever happens when I go for a walk, and for 15 minutes everything becomes clearer because you breathe, you move, and that just gets life moving, doesn't it? It's fascinating to me because obviously to hear this from someone with your background, your experience, and your qualifications around breath, because it's something we do automatically. We don't think about our nervous system doing stuff, but we don't think that tension, depression, trauma kind of puts a cage around you, doesn't it? You restrict yourself because your world feels so tight.
Yeah.
And something like that, if people are struggling, like you say, just breathe. It's the most logical thing to do, but it's the hardest thing to do because you don't pay attention to the fact you're not. So it's a great piece of advice. Great piece of advice. Just to go on to your actual your work now, then just briefly. So you've been through this journey. You've had a great loss. You've had your pause moment. You've hit rock bottom, right? Your wings are burnt. Life's hard, and then you've brushed yourself down and said, "I'm going to do this." And you've heard the echoes, right? The encouragement from elsewhere to say, "Yeah, you will," and you've done it, and you've proven you can, right? So you've lit your own fire and built your own courage, and you're now changing the world. So people who you help, I mean, how do they present, for example? So I guess what kind of things do you see when people contact someone like yourself? Because this might help people again who are going through the same thing and on that fence of, I don't need help. But actually, yeah, what would be the signs that you most commonly see that actually, no, you do, that you need a little bit of guidance?
I would say, listen, grief's not one size fits all, is it? And
Mm.
it can be, usually a lot of people that will come to me are many years down the line. It's not the ones that have just lost someone. It's years and years later, like myself, that thinks you're okay when actually they're like, I haven't dealt with this. And that was the biggest mistake that I ever made, was not, putting it in a box and suppressing it, just doing what society thinks we should do. It will come back round later. And I'm so proud of people that contact me, because I go, you've done the hardest part. You've reached out. That is the hardest part,
Yep.
to want support and to want to get to a place of growth. But yeah, and listen, we have so many different types of grief. Anticipatory grief, it's the loss of losing someone that may have a terminal illness, or losing someone that you knew to dementia, or like my brother had, MS. And you've got ambiguous grief, that is people that you grieve a divorce or relationship,
Mm.
and someone that's still alive, someone that you haven't seen for so long. All grief is valid. So there's just so many different types of. I have a lady that has just come to me. She's grieving her son because he's in a psychiatric hospital.
Mm.
And again, that is a type of grief, and they're all completely valid. So
It,
it it really varies.
Yeah. Well, do you know, I'm really glad you explained it in that way. I mean, I can give some context for myself, and again, this will help almost validate, not that it needs it, to the world. So, my father died to dementia. It was a long dementia, dragged out 7 to 10 years.
Mm.
And whilst I don't grieve him, because I worked in dementia care for a while, so I kind of knew the process. But I've always said to people, you die twice with dementia. You die when the person forgets you, and
Yeah.
that's almost the time you go, okay, it's harder now because they don't know who I am. That's kind of sad. You get grief and loss when they're sitting in front of you, but they're different.
Yeah.
And then you get the day they die, and that comes with confusion. That's what we had in my family. I was okay. I was like, he's resting now. This is the best thing for him because he wasn't himself. Yet
Yeah.
someone else in my family went totally to pieces and was asking these questions: did we care for them enough, and things like this. And like you say, there's no one size fits all to loss, but that's such a complicated condition. I guess it presents differently in different people to how they cope with it. And I lost my best friend at 31, and it took 10 years for me to really collapse. Ultimately, it was part of my Icarus journey. But I drunk, and I have many facets to why I controlled it, and one of them was that there was an isolating thing, which is my world had changed, but I was almost internally, emotionally in denial. I would avoid
Yeah.
certain things and then drink to numb it. But
Yeah.
these are all pathways which you can't sustain. So you have to work through it. And for me, exactly like you say, the walk was the thing, which is why I now, walk around the countryside and everything. So that's fascinating. So if I was going to ask you one last question then, so I am Icarus. I am very big on my mythology. So I'm going to ask you something themed like Icarus. So we all touch our suns, burn ourselves, we all fall. And then those who kind of get that change moment, get back up, brush down, and then they take to the sky. And I like to use fire, right? But you burn yourself on something, you learn the lesson, and the thing that burns you, the lesson you learn from it is the fire that then fuels you forward because you've had that change, you've had that impact. So imagine now Sarah's sitting there in her chair with a big set of wings on her back, right? And your wings are strong because you've grown. You're going to pull out one feather, and on that feather, you get to pluck it and pass it to someone who needs it, someone who's listening now, as a gift of power, a tip, knowledge, something, guidance. What would be written on that?
I would say life is precious. Go do it. Just get out there and grab it, take it, and just have no regrets. Sorry, not one.
It's a very big one. You're the second person I've asked a question to, and it always ends up being the size of the room, which is perfect because that means it's got depth, which is fine. Cool. So listen, thank you, Sarah, for coming on the show. It's been really great. And I'm really happy because I like to walk away knowing that I've learned something, and I've learned something now about grief and trauma. So, hopefully if someone like me can learn from it, then Joe Average is, that's me. So I'm hoping there's value here for everybody. Do
Yeah.
you have a website or anything in case anyone wants to contact you about counselling or trauma treatment? How do they get hold of yourself?
I'm on all social media platforms. So TikTok, Sarah, Grief Coach, and Facebook, and Instagram is embrace_your journey. So yeah, I'm out there. I've got a link tree. People can book discovery calls with me for free if they just want to have a chat and see if it's right for them. So yeah, reach out.
Great. Fantastic. Well, listen, I just thank you for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. And just as almost my way of a closing statement to the world, from my own perspective, grief and trauma have a way of making me feel a bit broken. That's how I felt. It took a long time for that to come out. But what I learned myself and from what I'm hearing from Sarah with your journey and from it sounding like the people you're working with too, is even though you can feel deeply broken, it doesn't mean it's proof that you are. It means you're human. And it's okay to hurt and it's okay to face things slowly. And I take that from your own adventure, of that kind of 5 to 7 year period. There was no time frame where you must get better, but just know that you will. And the secret here is keep going, because you may have scars from trauma and pain, but the spirals will return. It's just, to your point, you have to kind of make that choice, take a step, get some fresh air, and know that you're not alone, because grief, trauma, and loss is a universal thing across the human experience. It's guaranteed to happen to us, not just once, but multiple times. And every single time, I think we learn something. So to anyone out there now who is going through it, firstly, I highly recommend reaching out to Sarah because she's awesome. But secondly, I hope that from the knowledge and experience that Sarah shared today, that there's something to take away as a nod to the fact that no matter where you are on your journey, it can only get better. And it is possible to work beyond it and find that release. So you all matter. Thank you for listening to the show. Thank you, Sarah, once again for coming along. Stay wonderful, everyone. Have a great day. My name's Icarus. This is the After the Fall show. And Sarah, you're awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks.